Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Wednesday Weekly. My name is Patrick Carr, and I am one of the recruitment officers here at Lakehead University. I'm joined by our admissions team as always, as well as our Lakehead experts behind the scenes, and we will be answering your questions today for about the next hour. Jordan's away today, so I'll be your host. As always, we are working from home. Sorry, just a technical issue on my end. Sorry about that, everyone. I hope that everything sounds good and looks good now. Let's just jump right into it. And before we do that, I just want to talk about the Lakehead Live series. On Tuesday, we had a great session yesterday with Jen, our immigration advisor, on our Transition Tuesday. On Thursday, tomorrow, we'll have the International Student Services team will be talking about wellness supports. And on Friday, we'll be rebroadcasting the Faculty of Engineering webinar on our Faculty Friday. Things to remember for this webinar: if you do have any questions, feel free to ask us using the Q&A function. We would love to answer your questions. As always, we're joined by our undergraduate admissions officers. Our graduate admissions officers will be joining us soon, we hope. And if you do have a question, a follow-up question for them, you can email them at internationaladmissions@lakeheadu or gstudent@lakeheadu. And then lastly, stay connected with us on our social media channels and follow us on social media, and I'll cover those at the end of the presentation. So I am going to jump over to the Q&A today, or right now, and see if we do have any questions. I would ask that any of our participants do submit our questions through the Q&A function. So let's see if we have any questions. All right, so we have no questions just yet, and we are now joined by our graduate admissions officer as well. So if you do have a question for either our undergrad or graduate admissions officer, please submit them in the Q&A, or you can ask me a question. I can answer anything, pretty much anything Lakehead related. So we'll just give it a minute for our questions to come in. All right, so our first question is for you, Natalie. The question is it mandatory to take a business 1036 in the first year as an FCE elective? I'm not sure, Natalie, how familiar if you are with that course, and perhaps this question might be better addressed by our Lakehead expert behind the scene. But Natalie, do you know what course 1036 is, or is it a business faculty question?
I believe that is the math course, but I can have a look, okay? I can check, I can look for that information.
Okay, so while we look that up, I would advise all of our students who are working on their course registrations right now to look up the Lakehead FastPass. FastPass is a registration webinar that you can register for that will help you teach you how to read the course calendar, as well as build your schedule. And it's available as a webinar format for all undergraduate students. So we just got a few questions. I'm going to take a moment and read through them while Natalie looks up that information.
Okay, so that is not a required course. So that would be used as an elective. If you did take that course, it would be used as an elective. In the business program in the first year, you can either take a half credit of a non-business course or business 1036. So business 1036 is often a class that students who have not taken a grade 12 math class are required to take. So if you have not taken a grade 12 math class, you can take that business 1036. And if you have taken a grade 12 math class, you can take another elective of your choosing.
Awesome, thanks, Natalie. My next question, our next question is for Charisse, our graduate admissions officer here. The question is if a student wants to change from the project-based course to a course-based course, how do they do that, and how much time will it take to complete that process?
Okay, so I just need to be clear. Is this you're already in the program, you're a continuing student, or you're a brand new student just starting, you received an offer to the project route, but now you want to change to the course route? So if the latter is the case, if you were recently admitted to fall or winter for a project-based program, but you want to change that to course-based, there are two different ways you can do that. If you're not eligible to register already, then we can just make that change in the system at your request and send you a new offer letter. If you are already eligible to register, then that's a more difficult process, and probably the simplest way to do it is wait until courses start in September, submit a program change request form. Otherwise, we have to cancel it, inactivate you as a current student, make you apply again, send you a new offer, you have to accept the new offer. So it's probably easiest if you are already admitted and eligible to register to just make that change through a program change form in the fall. If you have not been made eligible to register, we can make that change now. So email us at gstudent@lakeheadu.ca and we can look at your specific case.
Awesome, thank you, Charisse. Our next question is a registration question. I'm not sure if it's an undergraduate or graduate question, but it has to do with in-person versus online. And so I think, Bennett, if you could provide us a little bit more detail about your situation, just so we can provide better context. The question is, if I pre-register for my courses and only one or two are in person, is there a way I can change those to online? So I think generally most courses have gone online this fall for the fall semester. And depending on your program, you might be able to be exclusively online. But to give you kind of a full, complete context, we would need more details. And it might be best if you email us at welcome@lakeheadu.ca so we can direct your registration question to the best person that can answer that for you. A follow-up question for you, Natalie, on our math question. I think it's the student says, I don't have grade 12 math condition on my updated LOA. Should I still take business 1036? I'll let you take that.
No, it's not a required course. You do have that option. As I mentioned on the academic calendar, it does say that you can either take business 1036 or another elective course. So you're welcome to take that course if you read the course description and you feel like it would be beneficial for you to take that course. However, it is not required for you.
Yeah, awesome, thank you. So I just got a couple of questions from our Facebook. The first one is, how long will classes remain based online for the fall? So Lakehead University is committed to the entirety of the fall semester. being primarily delivered online. So if you are registering for classes and your class is an online class or a Zoom class, a webinar, online webinar style class, it will be online for the entirety of the fall semester. And we've done that to allow our students the best information for planning purposes. That way you know whether you can be studying from home, or if you're traveling to Canada, if that is an option, and it's not an option for everybody right now anyways, that you will be able to study online for the entirety of the semester. No decisions yet have been made for the winter semester. And so right now we are still evaluating and taking advice from all of our local public health authorities here and to ensure that whatever delivery model is offered is in the best interest of whichever student, best interest of everyone, students, faculty, and staff at Lakehead University. So I have another question, a couple more questions I'm just going to read through here. Just give me a moment. Okay, so another question from Facebook, and it has to deal. It's a graduate student, and it's a kind of a combination question, Charisse, between a visa question as well as a kind of a regulations question. So I'll read the question and I will answer the visa part first, and then perhaps you can chime in on the kind of regulations around graduate studies. So our question from Facebook is, graduate international students are beginning their courses online without a study permit as VACs, visa application centers, remain closed for processing study permits. Will they have to interrupt for months, and for how long might there be an update on this regulation? So I actually think the question is strictly a visa question after I read it. So I would encourage the student to check out the latest information from the Canadian government. The Canadian government recently made an announcement around kind of a two-step process for applying for a visa and study permit. Where you can get basically the first clearance is an initial clearance, and then you would have a second step to when you can finally give your biometrics, get a police records check, and a few other things. The Canadian government does outline it very clearly on their website, and I would encourage you to review that information, because I think that would actually answer your question in terms of starting online with the proper documentation. Okay. A question for you, Charisse, is a student just accepted their new offer for computer science. How much time do they have to pay their deposit in order to keep space in their program?
So if you've accepted the offer, so that means you've sent in the paperwork back to the method that it says to accept. If you're coded as ACC, then we're going to make you eligible to register. So you'll need to pay your deposit. I think if you're coming for the fall, then your fees would be due by August 15th. So you can just pay it with that tuition payment. So we wouldn't require it now as long as you've accepted the offer, because we're getting close to that tuition deadline.
Awesome. Thank you so much for answering that question. Another question here, and it's about the My Awards portal, which I think is a little bit outside of our panel's expertise today. So I would encourage that student. Our Lakehead expert behind the scenes will link you the contact email of our Student Central team. I just wanted you to know that we read that question. You should see an answer to who to reach out to via email for that question in terms of your My Awards portal. Another graduate studies question here. I think it's a follow-up to our initial conversation. But if we change the program from a project 2 years course to course-based 1 year, sorry, I just lost the question. for fall 2020 after I got a visa for 2 years. How will this be changed? It looks like you've actually reached out to the student, Charisse, to have them connect with you directly. Awesome. So at this time, we don't have any active questions in the Q&A. I'd like to encourage all of our participants to send us any questions. I'm just going to take a look here while we wait. Right. Well, while we have some downtime while we're waiting for questions, I'm just going to chat about some of the options you can do to get more familiar with Lakehead University. I know Jordan often talks about the virtual tours of our campus you can take. So if you go to our website, you can sign up to take an entire virtual tour. It's a combination of 360-degree photos, videos. It's excellently narrated, and you can get a really good feel of what it's like to actually be a student on either of our campuses in Thunder Bay or Aurelia. And I would really encourage all students who are still thinking about what they want to do this fall to take a look at that virtual tour, because I think you'll see how wonderful and beautiful our campuses are as a place to study. All right, looks like we do have a couple questions, so I'll get back to those. Just let me review them. So a question for both, I think it doesn't necessarily specify, but I'll pull it to both our undergraduate and graduate admissions officer. The question is, I'm a late applicant and haven't received an offer letter just as of yet. Will I receive a decision for my application? I have applied for the fall semester. So I'll perhaps start with graduate studies, because I have a suspicion that this is a graduate studies applicant.
Hi there. So if it is a graduate program, it depends on if you have provided all of the documentation. And so we would need your unofficial final transcript, your unofficial proof of degree, and unofficial proof of language, and any other documentation that the program has requested. As long as we have all of those things, we will turn around an offer very quickly. We would like you to be here and join for the fall. So if you could email us at gstudent@lakeheadu.ca, just ask that question and your email will be forwarded to me to respond to.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Charisse. And Natalie, perhaps you can talk about students who are still waiting a decision on the undergraduate level, although I think the situation is a little bit different.
Yeah, so if you do have an application and you haven't received an offer yet, likely your application is incomplete. You can have a look at your MyInfo account to see what remaining documents and to see if your application is flagged as incomplete. If you have uploaded all your documents and you haven't received a decision, you can send us an email at intl.admission@lakeheadu.ca, and we'd be happy to look into the situation for you.
Great, thanks, Natalie. So our next question is about co-op programs. And the question is, my program has a co-op option, and I read material on Lakehead's website that some companies seem to be based in other cities, such as Calgary. The question is that usually the companies that are in Thunder Bay are other cities in Canada. So this is a great question, and I think I'm going to take a minute and talk about co-op in general. Lakehead works with over 100 companies, over probably closer to 300 or 400 companies, both locally, provincially, nationally, and internationally. So some of our companies, like you mentioned, are spread out across Canada, and that's because we work with large companies that are experts in their field, and that's where their headquarters and their co-op placements are. Other companies we work with are based here in Thunder Bay or in Aurelia, and students can take co-op placements locally. We work with companies internationally and across the province of Ontario as well. So depending on your preferences and depending on what you're interested in a co-op placement, It is one of the factors when you start applying to co-op placements that you should consider. For some students, they're okay temporarily moving to another Canadian city center to do a co-op placement. For other students, they would prefer to stay locally, and we do our best to match those students with local companies as well. There are lots of great co-op placements here in Thunder Bay, as well as Aurelia, in terms of companies, both large companies like Bombardier and Resolute Forest Products, maybe large Canadian companies, but also some smaller local companies that will provide an excellent experience in the industry. So I would encourage you when you get here to connect with our co-op officers and look into the placement that would best fit you. Okay, so we have another question here. I'm just going to take a moment to read it. Yeah, so we've got a great question from Alan Crit, and Alan Crit asks, for some courses, there are 2 delivery options this fall, web-based courses and a Zoom-based course. Can we choose both options for the same course? The reason they would like to do this is as they were staying from their home country, and it would be night here in their home country. If they miss a class, they can revisit the class with the web-based option. So the answer to that question is you cannot register for 2 sections of the same class simultaneously. The web-based option is the asynchronous option. So this is for students who will be who need or would prefer to study at their own pace, and because they can't make a time change work or they have other scheduling commitments. And this option is available for both international and Canadian students, and it might fit your lifestyle better. The Zoom option is a synchronous option, which means that classes are held at a simultaneous or the students are in the classroom simultaneously. You are attending a live lecture via the webinar format. You can ask questions and engage that way. Some students would prefer this method if they can attend the lecture live, or they would prefer to interact with the class in that way. For some students, the synchronous option might not be possible for time changes. Alan Crit, what I would advise you as a recruitment officer here at Lakehead is to look at your schedule and see which course will fit best with your schedule as a whole. You know, one class is just a piece of the puzzle, as it were. But I would also suggest to you that you think about what the synchronous versus asynchronous option might be. Well, you might be able to commit to some nights. If you think that studying late in the evening is not going to be a long-term strategy for success, I would encourage you to think about the asynchronous option. However, if the synchronous option is something you want to do and you know you can commit to studying, say it's 7 or 8 p.m. and that's a reasonable accommodation you can make, the synchronous option might be the best option for you. The reason why you cannot take the same class at the same time is it's the same course content, and it's the assignments and everything is graded simultaneously. So they might be taught by different professors and have slightly different grading schedules, and you would be expected to do the work for both classes, write the exam for both classes, and if you were to not complete some of the work for each classes, they are independent of each other. So it would show up on your transcript as you've taken that class twice. So I would not advise doing that. If you have any other questions about that, feel free to reach out to me or any of the recruitment officers. We have a great virtual chat tool where you can schedule a one-on-one appointment. Oh, and Alan Crit just sent a follow-up. if they choose a synchronous option, can I avail a recording? So I would encourage you to reach out to your faculty to see if they will be making recordings of the classes live. I think that's up to the professor at this point, or the faculty, to see what their policy is on that. So I would encourage you to reach out to the professor that is teaching that course. Explain your situation and say you would love to participate in the synchronous option, but you are cautious about being able to do that consistently. So a question from our chat about online classes going to be live or pre-recorded. So like I was just talking about, we do have the synchronous or asynchronous option. And the synchronous option is a live classroom set at a certain time every week. Like I said, where students are able to join the class, listen to the lecture, interact with their classmates, pose questions, like an online digital classroom. The asynchronous options are not live, but I don't want to insinuate that they are a pre-recorded class, because the asynchronous model is an interactive learning environment where you will do work at your own pace, but you still have deadlines and interaction opportunities via discussions, discussion posts, and assignments and group work done remotely. So it's not a pre-recorded class per se, and I don't want to imply that it would be. The asynchronous option is really there for students who can't make it because of the time change, or we've always offered asynchronous learning for students who might not be able to commit to the same time slot every week for a course. They have the time to do the course every week, but their schedule doesn't allow necessarily to be committed every Wednesday for a certain time. So I hope that answers your questions about the two types of online classes this fall. So I'm just going to take a look in the Q&A, and if you have any questions, please do submit them. It looks like we've answered all the questions for now. I'm just looking at the time. We're about halfway through today's webinar, so we have about 30 minutes left. We may not stay the whole time if there are no more questions. However, if you do have questions, I do have our undergraduate and graduate admissions officer here to answer your questions, and I am also able and well-versed to answer questions. So I'll give a minute for new questions to come in. So while we wait for some questions to come in, I'm just going to talk a little bit. I mentioned it. If you go to our website, you can actually book a one-on-one conversation with any of our recruitment officers. We have a great virtual chat tool. It's essentially a one-on-one meeting with myself or any of my colleagues, and we're based around the world. So we're generally available in your local time zone at a time that's convenient, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have about Lakehead, or those more in-depth questions, or those more conversational questions that you would like answers to. The virtual chat tool is a great way to connect with a Lakehead expert, and really you can talk to someone within 24 hours. We usually can get an appointment in. It's easy to use, and it uses the Zoom platform. So I would encourage you to check out that that tool on our Lakehead website. So a question for both Natalie and Charisse. I want to defer my offer to the winter term. How much time do I have to send my official transcripts? Due to COVID-19 pandemic, it's hard for me to travel to other cities and send my official transcripts. So perhaps Natalie, you can talk about our policies around receiving and getting and our official transcripts and deferrals for undergraduate, and then Charisse, you can talk about graduate studies.
Sure, thanks for that question. So if you have decided to start in the winter term, we still do require your official transcripts before the start of the classes in September, even though you're starting in January. So the deadline dates will still apply to you for the fall semester, as the undergraduate offers are valid for both the fall and the winter term. So we are accepting transcripts via email. So if your school can email those to us, they can send those to us through email and those will be considered official. We are still accepting mail as well. So if that is an option for you, you can also send those to us through mail. We will be flexible with the deadline date. However, they are still required to be at our office before the September semester starts.
Awesome. Thanks, Natalie. And Charisse, maybe you can tell us about the graduate study policy right now.
So if you are a September start, then you've likely contacted us already to let us know that your documents will be delayed. If you haven't, you can do that by emailing us at GStudent, and we will give you until November 1st to provide us with the official documentation. You would need to make sure that we have the unofficial final transcript and proof of degree uploaded to your application. But like I said, November 1st would be the deadline for the official documents to arrive. If you are starting in the winter, then we would need to have those documents. We haven't decided on a date yet because we're just kind of waiting until we get through the fall portion. But generally it's by the time courses start, we need to have the official documents. That might change depending on the COVID situation, but that's kind of a, we're assessing that as we go along.
Thanks, Charisse. I have another question that I'll pose your way in just a moment. One of our graduate students is asking, can they book an appointment with a faculty or professor? They want to know, they're looking to connect with that person because they need some counseling on the courses that align with their research path. I feel like this is a graduate studies question. What is the best way for a incoming student who has accepted their offer and is gearing up to make course selections to connect with the graduate advisor in their field to make sure they pick the right classes?
Okay, so if you're a graduate student, what you can do is if you log on to your MyInfo account and you look at My Graduate Studies application, you click on the program that you've been admitted to, it will give you a list of the graduate coordinator and usually the administrative assistant to contact them. So you can use those emails to contact them directly. If you're not having any success with the graduate coordinator, reach out to the administrative assistant because sometimes they can help you with that.
Great. And Natalie, just for our undergraduate students watching today, maybe you can chat a bit about the best way for undergraduates to get advice on their registration for the fall.
Absolutely. So if you are an undergraduate student and you have attended the FastPass but still have some questions regarding registration, you can always reach out to our Student Central office. I will chat that to everybody so that everyone has the contact information for Student Central. Student Central can assist our undergraduate students with anything regarding registration, student awards, and financial aid. So if you do have any questions regarding that, you can contact them. I know someone had previously asked a question about their was that my award. So if you're having trouble with that, you can also contact Student Central. So I'll include their email below and you can reach out to them. Anything in regards to registration, student awards and financial aid, and even admissions if you have any questions about that.
Awesome, thanks so much. There are no questions currently in the Q&A, so I'd encourage anyone hanging around, if you do have a question, please do submit it because it's looking like we won't be here quite the full hour. While we wait for questions to come in, oh, one more question just came in, so that's good. how can we make sure documents are submitted, delivered, and received properly by the university? Do we need to add any notes in the mail? So again, I'll let Charisse talk about this for graduate studies, and then Natalie talk about the best way to receive documents for undergraduate studies.
Hi, thank you. So if you're sending your documents by courier, you're going to address them to the Faculty of Graduate Studies, Lakehead University, 955 Oliver Road, and that we have emailed back and forth. So that's in my signature line. And if you want me to reiterate it, just send me a quick email. You've got my personal email. When the documents arrive at our shipping and receiving, they are signed for. So you'll see that they're signed for by, someone named Spivak. And then that means they're waiting for us to go get them. Now we only go pick those up once a week. And so, if they arrive on the day after I pick them up 1 week, it's going to be, a full week before we get to them. So if you see the initial signature by shipping and receiving, it means that it's in Thunder Bay and somebody from Graduate Studies will be going to pick it up and process it.
Awesome. Thanks, Charisse. And Natalie, perhaps you can touch base on the undergraduate procedure.
Yeah, the process is very similar. So if you have sent it through the mail, we are only picking up mail once a week at this point, and so there definitely can be a delay. One thing I would just say is if you are sending your documents, just make sure you are addressing the department they need to go to, either graduate studies or undergraduate admissions, because during this time we have had some delays with receiving mail because either no department is listed on the document or the wrong department is listed. So I believe you were a graduate studies applicant, so just make sure you are writing the Faculty of Graduate Studies, and if there are any undergraduate students listening right now, ensure you are addressing that to undergraduate admissions.
If I can just add to that, if you have the ability to write your Lakehead ID number on that somewhere, like if, in your return address, you put your name and your ID number, that is really helpful to us to be able to process it more quickly.
Awesome. Lots of good information there. And I'm going to just add in my one suggestion to anyone trying to send physical documents to the university. Ensure that you're sending things with a tracking number. It may cost a slight amount extra, but given the global situation, and even normally, I would recommend that you have the ability to track your package. The mail service is really reliable, but it's not perfect. And so if you can, when you email us to follow up if we've received your documents, it's really helpful if you can provide us with a tracking number. And if it shows that we have received them, but we haven't processed them on your file yet, it's helpful if you can show us that it indeed has arrived, that it indeed was signed for. It allows us to track it down internally here a little bit more. So I know it does add a little bit of cost, but do ensure that you opt for the option with a tracking number. Generally, this is called expedited or priority mail, but depending on your service. And we do accept all types of mail couriers here at Lakehead University. Yeah. Okay, so while we wait for a few more questions to come in, I'm just going to remind everyone of our events the rest of the week here. We're at the midweek point for our Lakehead International Live series. Tomorrow we will have on our Transition Thursday, hosted by the International Student Services team, we will have a wellness supports talk where they're going to chat about all the different wellness supports available to students on campus. On Friday, we are doing a Faculty Friday with the Faculty of Engineering. So if you have questions for the Faculty of Engineering or want to learn more information about the faculty, if you're an incoming undergraduate or graduate engineering student, I would recommend tuning in. And then we'll be live again next week. So keep an eye on your email for next week's live sessions. Again, if you do have questions, you can email undergraduate or graduate admissions. And I did mention staying connected to us on social medias as we wrap up today, if there are no more questions. So you can follow us on our Facebook page at Lakehead University International. We do have a great Instagram account. It's Lakehead International. If you are a Twitter user, you can find us at Lakehead INTL. And on YouTube, Lakehead University, and you can check out all the past broadcasts on our Lakehead University International Lives playlist. So it's a great playlist with all of the backlog of all of these Q&As, as well as our Faculty Fridays. Lots of really good information there. Again, I'd like to highlight the Take a Virtual Campus Tour. You can do that at lakeheadu.ca/tours. And as Jordan would tell you, you can do it from the comfort of your couch. So it's a great way to visit campus, without having to leave the comfort of your home. Before we wrap up today, I'm just going to take a look at the Q&A in the chat to see if there are any other questions. Just one moment. Okay, so it does look like we've covered everything for today. I'd like to thank my two panelists, as well as Sylvia, who's behind the scenes today, for answering all of the questions. I know everyone's quite busy. We will answer one more question, the address of graduate studies. We'll make sure that you get that, Alan Kripp, our Lakehead expert behind the scenes. Will put in the university's mailing address here real quick as we're saying goodbye. But I know everyone's really busy. It's a busy time of year. If you do have any questions, please do reach out to us. And again, we'll be back live next Wednesday with myself, with our undergraduate and graduate admissions teams. And we are happy to answer any questions. Follow us on our social medias, as that is important. And you can stay up to date on all of the events going around on Lakehead. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, everyone, and I hope you have a great Wednesday, whether you're just starting your day like us or you're just winding down as you're abroad. Have a good evening, and we'll chat with all of you soon.